Dear participants of the refresher program, I welcome you in this first session on basics of econometrics. I hope that it is going to be interesting, and I have prepared in such a manner that it will be relevant for layman and for people from most of the disciplines. To start with, I have titled the first session as Philosophical Discussions and Arguments for Econometrics, considering the fact that the conceptual understanding is very important for all of us, and particularly for those who want to start testing with this kind of discipline. I have identified key issues that will clear our concept of the relevance of econometrics and what is the foundational understanding of econometrics with respect to the relationship between different variables around us. Therefore, if we see, the first important issue is how to define econometrics. And I've identified and selected Oxford Economics Dictionary because it provides a very crystal clear understanding of key economic terms. And therein, econometrics is defined a discipline that develops mathematical and statistical methods in relation to economic theory, economic models, and then conducts the quantitative analysis. But it cannot be restricted just to economic models and economic understanding of the things. It can also be social understanding and it can also be political understanding. If we can define things into some constraint and if we have some kind of relationship backed by conceptual understanding, and then if we have data confrontation with these things, then we can do any analysis with the help of econometrics. Why philosophy and why research is related to econometrics? The first important thing is that econometrics tries to solve a philosophical problem of cause and effect, which we are going to deal in detail in the second section. But a glimpse of that we are going to see in this discussion only. And another important thing is research. Research is also very important. And econometrics specializes in addressing research problems. So because of these two issues, econometrics becomes a very important discipline if we want to understand relationship between different constraint variables, between different phenomena that exist in the system. For that, we have to understand fallacy. What is a fallacy? Because econometrics tries to solve fallacies. Now, I'll give one example. We have a fallacy which is supposed to be the most common and easily understood fallacy. That is argumentum ad populum, which means that if some argument becomes too much popular, what happens? Other people starts believing it. It is also known as the bandwagon effect. So if I believe in something and then I think that others also believe, so because majority is believing in a particular phenomena, the others also start to believe in the same. It does not mean that if majority believes something, it's not true. But the only thing is, if majority believes some kind of relationship and then there exists some evidence, then it's fine. Econometrics says that we will search for evidences. And if something is backed by evidences, then we are going to accept it as a phenomena. Otherwise, we are going to accept it as a belief only. So just an informal fallacy, which the support given for some conclusion is an appeal to popular belief. So evidence may not be there, but belief is there, and then people start taking it, considering it as a relationship backed by evidence. So what is a fallacy? It is a type of argument that seems to be correct, but it contains a mistake in reasoning, and we are going to identify that mistake with the help of econometrics. If we see a specific example, suppose in a country we have a new petroleum minister, and you can see the gasoline prices per barrel is given in this particular chart. Now here what happens, if you see, this fallacy is known as post hoc fallacy. The full name is post hoc ergo propter hoc, but in short it is known as post hoc fallacy. It means after this, therefore because of this. So if we see the example, you see in this particular chart, it is very clear that at 120 gasoline price per barrel, the new petroleum minister was appointed. But soon after his or her appointment, the gasoline prices have started to fall down. Now, what will happen is that there will be people who will be writing articles, people who will be believing that, because a new petroleum minister has been appointed, and just after his or her appointment, the gasoline prices have started falling. It means that there is some kind of relationship between the appointment of new petroleum minister and the fall in gasoline prices. So people will start appreciating, and it can also be the reverse. That suppose a new petroleum minister has been appointed, and soon after his or her appointment, the gasoline prices have started rising. So people will start criticizing. Or why they are criticizing? Because they have accepted a relationship between the appointment of the new petroleum minister and the rise in prices of the gasoline. But a deeper understanding tells us that gasoline prices are not determined according to the leadership. They are they are determined on economic forces or some kind of geopolitical forces. And they are not regional, they are global. That understanding tells us that this kind of relationship, which whosoever is believing, is not valid. And they are believing in this kind of relationship because they are following a fallacy which is very common. That is post hoc fallacy. After this, therefore, because of this. It is also very common in our daily lives. If suppose I ate something in the morning and in the evening or next day I am ill, the first thing which goes into my mind is that it has happened because I ate that thing in the morning, which generally I do not eat. So this happens. It may be true, it may not. We need to see for evidence. But without evidence, if we accept something, then econometrics has a problem with that. And econometrics wants to change this kind of behavior and understanding of relationship and phenomena which exist around us. That there should be evidence-backed decision making related to the phenomena which exist in our social system, in our economic system. And that is why econometrics is so important. We will take some real world example where econometrics has helped to understand the relationship. Take, for example, the new economic policy which was implemented in July 1991 in India. Now, soon after new economic policy in 1991, in 1992, there was a Bombay stock market crash. Soon after the crash, there were articles, even some descriptive publications were there that highlighted that this Bombay stock exchange crash is linked to the new economic policy of 1991. Now you can see this post hoc fallacy is working over here because this was followed by Bombay stock crash, the new economic policy. There were a kind of belief that there exists a relationship between these two. Though the relationship later on, when the data was available and data was analyzed using econometrics techniques, it was identified that there was structural breaks because of which happened, but it cannot be related to new economic policy of 1991. So their econometrics identify, investigated, and then reached to a conclusion. Another example which will clarify this particular concept, which stands as the foundational philosophy of econometrics, is the world economic crisis of 2008, which started in 2007 with the subprime crisis and which became a contagion crisis in 2008. Soon after 2008, with some kind of gap, but obviously it's not a long run effect. In 2010, yuan became very strong, and around 30%, 5% of the world trade increased in yuan in terms of year-on-year change. What happened is that there were articles again and some descriptive research also that the strong position of yuan is because of world economic crisis. So again, these two things were linked. Though there was mere temporal succession, It is only matter of time that in 2008 we have world economic crisis. In 2010 we have the strong position of yuan. Again, relation was there. Again, the reason is the post hoc fallacy. And people who apply deterministic statistics, believing that we have deterministic relationship between two or more variables, they particularly tend towards believing that there exists a relationship if there is some kind of succession. So if there is event A, event B, and event A precedes event B, we tend to believe that there is some kind of relationship without investigation. Econometrics tries to argue that if there is event A and then followed by event B, it may or may not be related to event A. It means whether a cause and effect relationship exists between A and B needs to be investigated and examined. Just by mere occurrence, it cannot be concluded and should not be concluded there is some kind of causal relationship. We will be discussing the causal and causal relationship in the next session. Another example, very interesting one, is the London Olympic Games in 2012. And in 2013, the business index values of Britain. It appeared that in 2013, the business index falls for Britain. And interestingly enough, there were articles that related Olympic Games to the business index falls. People argued that because London was busy in sports in 2012 because of the London Olympic Games, the business index for Britain fell in 2013. Though most of them, or rather I should say, nobody gave a reasonable investigated evidence to believe in that particular thing. But still, that happened. And those who wanted to believe, following the first fallacy, that is the popular argument is accepted, people started believing in that. Now, our position, being researchers or being interested in research, is to identify that why evidence-based decisions and relationship are important for policy making, for implementation. And therefore, econometrics tries to solve this particular problem. It attempts to provide evidence-based decisions with the help of modeling, quantitative techniques, mathematical and statistical techniques with some modifications, which may provide us insights and inputs for better policy making and implementation. If you read the book Applied Economics by Thomas Sowell, he argues that there is a concept of thinking beyond zero. A policy will always fall if we are not searching for evidences, because if we have evidences, if we have properly investigated for evidences, we can then know what is the actual relationship between different phenomena. And then we can apply or tweak the phenomena in such a manner that the policies do work. This is the foundational understanding of econometrics. To summarize it, there are three key takeaways. Number one, econometrics is a technique, it's a discipline which merges mathematical techniques, statistical techniques, and economic theories. The second takeaway is that fallacies that are relationship not backed by reasoning, econometrics tries to negate those relationships. The third is econometrics helps us, assist us in formulating policies that are backed by evidence in real world problem for real world problems. I hope that this first session is interesting for you all and hope that you would be able to grab the key takeaways from this particular session. Thank you, everybody.